Okay. Hello, Juan de Dios.
Hello, Grace. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Our presentation is about a concept that we decided is interesting and that is going to be useful in our teaching. The concept is communicative language teaching.
But what is CLT? CLT is a language teaching approach based on the linguistic theory of communicative competence. Developing communicative competence in learning is a goal of CLT. CLT emphasizes humanism, which focuses on students' needs and individual affective factors. This advocates several language learning principles as opposed to as articulated learning theory and draws from several language teaching methods. Therefore, CLT is an approach rather than a method of English language teaching, ELT.
Yes, it definitely it's an approach. Taking a look to our students, we decide to choose this concept because there are many students that lack in speaking. They seldom express their thoughts, feelings, and ideas because they have no ability to do it. In the classroom, they got many vocabularies and also grammar, and it's help to speak English well by having many vocabularies and understanding the structure of sentences. But students had limited time to practice their language. There are some activities that we're going to explain further in this video, like information gap activity that increase the students' speaking skills and is the solution for those who wanted to increase their speaking. This activity gave the students opportunity to speak to each other. They had to get the information that they did not found on their paper by asking to the other partner. Automatically, it tried the students how to speak intelligibly. The demand for an appropriate teaching methodology is therefore as strong as ever. The CLT has served as a major source of influence on language teaching practice around the world. Many of the issues raised by communicative teaching methodology relevant today that teachers who are relative new on this profession may not be familiar with them.
Subsequently, um, where did CLT originated um, and why is it so popular? CLT was developed in the UK in the 1960s and in the 1970s and was popularized by the British Council and the Council of Europe. CLT was a reaction to language teaching methods that seem ineffective. For example, the grammar translation, the audiolingual method in developing learners um, who can communicate both orally and in written with native speakers in a way to both written and orally um, with native speakers um, in a way appropriate to their mutual needs, which mentioned the author Ellis in 1996 in the ELT journal called How Culturally Appropriate is the Communicative Approach. English has become the international language of commerce, science, and technology.
Besides, as a result, many people around the world are now experiencing English fever, which is the great desire to learn English. especially how to engage in conversation in English. In general, what are the features of CLT? Well, it focuses on negotiation of meaning and meaningful communication rather than linguistic structures. It also focuses on active learning and active learners, collaboration among learners, and purposeful interactions. Uh, Also, it focuses on the effective domain of the classroom and creating a language learning environment that supports risk taking by the learners. For example, here comes an example that is a community of learners. That will be a huge example over here that comes to my mind. Again, it focuses on the whole learner. For example, the learner with his or her own learning style, plus the person with emotions and individual needs.
Furthermore, the use of authentic material, for example, materials aimed at native English speakers rather than ESL learners, in reality, real objects from a native English speaking culture, such as, for example, an advertisement. Um, Use of variety of strategies which address different learning styles and language skills, and um, tolerance for errors are another features. Wikipedia says that CLT is an approach to the teaching of second and foreign languages that emphasizes interaction as both the means and the ultimate goal of learning a language. It also refers to as communicative approach to the teaching of foreign languages, or simply the communicative approach. Thus, Richards and Rogers, in their book called Approaches and Methods in Language Teaching in 2001, describes CLT as an approach rather than a method, since it represents a philosophy of teaching that is based on communicative language use, advocated by many applied linguistics. CLT, in their views, emphasizes emotional, functional um, concepts and communicative competence rather than grammatical structures and central to teaching.
This method aims at developing procedures from the teaching of the four skills that acknowledge the interdependence of language and communication. It aims at having students become communicatively competent. We have this author, Sunja, in 1994, mentioned in his book, Innovative Strategies in Communication, the goals of communicative approach. He mentions three goals. The first one is to become communicatively competent and to use the language for a given social context. And the last one will be to manage the process of relating meaning with interlocutors. Later on, 1980, Cannell and Swain, in an analysis of Cambridge University, name approaches and methods in language teaching. They describe four dimensions of communicative competence. They mention grammatical, social linguistic, discourse, and strategic competence. In grammatical competence, they refers to what Chomsky calls linguistic competence. In social linguistic, they refer to context in which communication takes place. For example, role relationships, shared beliefs, and information between participants. They refer to discourse competence to the interpretation of individual message elements in terms of their interconnectedness, of how meaning is represented in relationship to the entire discourse or test. And finally, the last competence, the last dimension is the strategic competence. It refers to the copying strategies that participants use to initiate, terminate, maintain, repair, and redirect communication.
According to the communicative approach, in order for teaching to take place, emphasis must be put on the importance of these variables. Uh, the first one, communication, which are activities that involve real communication, promote learning. The tasks, these are activities in which language is used to carry out meaningful tasks, supports the learning process. And meaning, the language that is meaningful and authentic to the learner boosts learning. Moreover, the range of exercise types and activities compatible with communicative approach, it's unlimited, provided that such exercises enable learners to obtain the communicative objectives of the curriculum. For example, in information gap activities, reasoning gap activities, also jigsaw activities, pair and group work. Also, I could mention images, pictures, photos, poetry, music, drama, internet, and other forms of technology, of course. Um, Generative general questions, media, literacy, social formulas and dialogues, problem solving activities, or role plays.
Yes. In addition, according to Prabhu, there are three main categories of task, like information gap, reasoning gap, and opinion. Let me explain you about the information gap activity. This one is the one that involves a transfer of giving information from one person to another, from one form to another, or from one place to another. I mean, generally calling for the decoding or encoding for information from language. In 2007, Jeremy Harmer says that information gap activity are those who were the students have different pieces of information about the same subject and have to share this information usually without looking to their partner has got in order for them both to get all the information they need and perform a task. Here comes to my mind one example that is pair work, in which each member of the pair has approval information. For example, an incomplete picture, and attempts to convey it verbally to the other. Let's go to the second task. This one is the reasoning gap activity, which involves deriving some new information from given information through processes of inference, deduction, practical reasoning, and a perception of relationships or patterns. One example is working out of a teacher's timetable on the basis of giving class timetables. Another is deciding what course of action is best. For example, cheapest or quickest. For a given purpose and given constraints. The activity necessary involves comprehending and conveying information, and as in GAP, as the last one, as the information gap activity. But the information to convey is not identical with that initially comprehended. There is a piece of reasoning which connects the two. The last one, finally, the opinion gap activity. This one involves identifying and articulating a personal preference, feeling, or attitude in response to a given situation. One example from this opinion gap activity will be a story competition. Another one could be a discussion of a social issue. The activity may involve using factual information and formulating arguments to justify one's opinion. But there is no objective procedure for demonstrating outcomes as right or wrong, and no reason to expect the same outcome from different individuals or on different occasions.
So let's see how we can use this approach. The most common educational model applied in the context of the communicative method is the functional notional approach, which emphasizes the organization of the syllabus. This breaks down the use of language into five functional categories that can be more easily analyzed: personal, like feelings, interpersonal, social, and working, and relationships, directive, influence others, referential, reporting about things or events, people, or language itself, and imaginative, creativity, and artistic expressions or examples. These five broad functions are then delivered by the teacher in the classroom using the 3PS teaching model, which stands for presentation, practice, and production structure. The model, the 3Ps. But why it's important for teachers to gain a good understanding of the theoretical and practical issues of the CLT. Let me make emphasis in some advantages of this approach. This technique increases the learning students' relationship. It is an interactive relationship. CLT provides the opportunity for students to be aware of their abilities. And they also exhibit them. The students in this way can learn the target language and enjoy it. They will have fun learning. Then being holistic approach, it doesn't focus only on the traditional structural syllables. It takes into consideration communicative dimensions of language. It provides a variety of of motivations within the classroom Furthermore, CLT is uh, a learner-centered approach. It emphasizes on the interest and the needs of the learners, which is very important in a world where communication of information and information of technology have broken new, we would say, considerable grounds of CLT can play and can be an important role in education. At the same time, one of the disadvantages we would say we would call this is that the requirements are difficult. Not all the classrooms are allowed for a group of to work the activities and for the teaching aims to be the materials that are required to be developed the to be developing the activities in under this approach, then it is control controversial whether it can be used in every level or students. This arises that sometimes this method cannot be used in all for all levels of teaching, and the teacher should provide should be prepared the syllabus by taking students' interests and needs into account. However, the energy and the time of the teacher are limited also.
Okay. Equally important, there are some barriers to CLT. For example, it is required for teachers to have a high English language proficiency and test preparation. The sizes of the class are large. For example, there are 50 to 60 students in a single class for one teacher to handle. Another barrier is the lack of teacher training in effective CLT strategies of practice among teachers in using effective CLT strategies. Moreover, it is expected classroom behavior among teachers and students in certain cultures. But how teachers can surmount these barriers? It's necessary to improve their proficiency, try to develop an eclectic English teaching approach, which incorporates some traditional English teaching strategies along with CLT strategies. There are some guidelines that have been suggested to support teachers developing in a CLT approach. For example, teaching should start with listening and speaking. Drills on the language form should not be too excessive. Language should be used in class, and the use of translations should be limited. Audio visual aids like Ralia pictures, overhead transparencies, audio tapes, videos, and computers. This is there are they can help you a lot. They should be fully utilized. The teacher's role should be a facilitator and helper to guide the students in the learning process. The appropriate encouragement should be given to students to reinforce their initiative. After all, there is no one method that is more excellent over the other methods. It is only the method that is appropriate to the time of activity, and for certain activity, information gap, spoken activity, for example, reasoning gap or the opinion gap activity, are not only the best techniques in encouraging speaking ability, but others as well. It depends on the teacher which technique or strategies are going to use. There are techniques that can make students acquire the target language. It also increases motivation, self-confidence, and they develop soft skills. For instance, they encourages cooperative relationships. They gives the chance to work on negotiating meaning, enables the students to feel comfortable to speak. They increase communicative practice maximally. They enable students to communicate intended meaning, teaches the students to pay attention to social context of the communicative events. So there are a lot of advantages to that this CLT can help us on teaching in a classroom.
In general, the communicative approach is based on the idea that learning language successfully comes through having to communicate real meaning. When learners are involved in real communication, their natural strategies for language acquisition will be used. And this will also allow them to learn to use the language. For example, practicing questions forms by asking learners to fill out personal information about their colleagues is an example of the communicative approach, as it involves meaningful communication. Going to inside the classroom activities guided by the communicative approach are characterized by trying to produce meaningful and real communication at all levels. As a result, there may be more emphasis on skills than systems. Lessons are more learner centered, and there may be use of authentic materials. Thank you for watching this video, and hope you put this in practice, this interesting topic that we presented to you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Gris.
Bye-bye.